Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be giving a message to the Asheboro, North Carolina Police Department to reopen the Brandon Embry case. Now, Brandon Embry died on September 13th, 2019. The case involving the death of Brandon Embry needs to be reopened. Now, this was a death that should have been dealt with correctly nearly 3 years ago. The manner of death was ostensibly murder. You have to be oblivious not to realize that. It was certainly not suicide or whatever the original ruling was. He had an exorbitant amount of diphenhydramine in his system, which is the main proponent of Benadryl. Now, I believe this would be rather unorthodox way for one to kill oneself. Um, if one was going to do so, I would say it could be done in a much easier manner. He had numerous injuries and contusions to much of his body. He was completely brutalized. His face was barely recognizable. Those extensive injuries could not have been self-inflicted. He would have had been knocked into submission before inflicting all those injuries on himself. There were injuries on parts of his body that were difficult, if not impossible, to reach. Um, you don't have to be a medical examiner to realize that. Now, not only um, should Brandon's body have been looked at more extensively, I would say the medical examiner's credentials may need to be looked at as well. And the mother, Sarah Lee, talked to a number of doctors and nurses, and they had all concurred that this was not self-inflicted. A nurse in the intensive care unit had stated, if she didn't know any better, she would have thought that Brandon was hit by a vehicle. Now, somebody had the audacity to say that Brandon was on meth and that that's what caused the death to happen. Now, however, there was no finding of meth in his system. There's no meth discovered in his system. And the thing is, by not reopening the case, the person that did this likely will remain on the streets and will continue to enjoy life without punishment and could potentially hurt other people. It's not if that hasn't been done so already. Now the thing is, it's not fair to let somebody go on living a good life. Basically, let them continue to enjoy life in the free world and go unscathed, and get away with something. And, this is again, this is ostensibly murder. This was not suicide. This case was not looked into nearly as extensively as it should have. You know, it shouldn't have been up to the mother to do this investigation and to be looking into the death as thoroughly as she has. She has worked relentlessly and laboriously on his Brandon Embry's death, and this should have been the job of the investigators to do so, and the police department should be doing this. And the thing is, all I could say is let your conscience be your guide. Please do the right thing and reopen this investigation. Brandon's family and friends deserve justice. His death needs to be avenged. And by not reopening the case, that would be a crime in itself. Really, it would be downright blasphemous. And Brandon was in the military, and he was somebody that served his country um, in doing so. And really, it's a time that Brandon should be served properly as well. And it's not, don't continue to just throw this under the proverbial rug and act like this. There's nothing significant about this. That this is not important. This is somebody that died in a way, suffered a brutal death, suffered kind, benevolent person that lost his life on this earth, and was a relatively young man. He was near the prime of his life, at prime age when this transpired. And the thing about it is when one person dies, you're hurting. It affects the whole family, friends, other people are suffering because of this, and it's really again, this is something that needs to be looked at, and I ask that the Asheboro, North Carolina Police Department do the right thing, do what's ethical, show integrity. This is what they call, there was a movie where somebody used the term moral imperative. Well, this is certainly one of those cases. And really, again, this is something where I would state to close, please don't continue to welch on a promise to protect and serve and do what's lawful.